3 years of marriage, I helped He Hanjo lift the Empire Group from the brink of bankruptcy to industry leadership, in exchange for a screenshot of a hotel fixed position. That day was Wednesday. I remember it clearly, because every Wednesday afternoon he said he would go to the golf course to discuss business. I never doubted him. For 3 years, I believed whatever he said, until Bai Luoshi sent that photo. In the photo, He Hanjo is wearing the dark blue shirt I pressed for him, sitting in front of the floor-to-ceiling window in a hotel suite, holding a glass of red wine. Bai Lu 11 only photographed his profile, with the caption, "He said he isn't coming home tonight." She didn't send it to me, she posted it on Moments in the group visible section. It's likely only me and a few people we both know. I was working overtime at the company, revising the PowerPoint for tomorrow's board meeting for He Hanjo. I had been working on the Southeast Asia expansion plan for the Empire Group for a full 2 months, revising it 17 times. He has never once said thank you or acknowledged the hard work. My phone buzzed. I opened the photo and enlarged it to examine his expression. That relaxed, lazy smile was something I had never seen at home. My heart was suddenly squeezed by something, but I can't quite explain the pain. It's just that moment when something is completely broken, like a string that had been taut for 3 years and finally snapped. I closed the PPT, opened the ticketing app, and checked the divorce registration appointment, the nearest available time, tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon. I click confirm, then I continue editing the PPT. He Hanjo gets home at 11 at night, and I smell a strange perfume on his suit, the sweet, cloying fragrance of gardenia, not the scent of any laundry detergent. Are you free tomorrow afternoon? I take his coat. The tone is normal as ever. There is a meeting tomorrow afternoon. He walks to the bathroom without looking back. What about the day after tomorrow, Shinanji? He stopped and frowned at me. When did you become so wordy? Is there something you can't let the assistant handle? I smiled and said nothing. Wedding anniversary. The day after tomorrow is our 3rd wedding anniversary. Sure enough, he forgot I had planned to talk to him about divorce on this day. Now it seems there's no need to choose a date anymore. At 1:30 the next afternoon, I took half a day off from work, saying I wasn't feeling well. He Hanjo was in a meeting with the marketing department in the office. As I passed by the door of the conference room, I saw him slamming his fist on the table and frosted glass lighting up his face in front of everyone. There was a small problem with the Southeast Asia contract, and the profit share was half a point off. No one dared to speak up. I stood in the doorway and watched him for 3 seconds, recalling the photo of Bai Luoshi yesterday, and I suddenly found it funny. He Hanjo, do you know, this project from start to finish was my negotiation, the general manager on the other side. How many times I've had a drink you've never cared about. Now you're here banging the table and scolding people. Have you ever thought about who bore all this for you? I didn't say anything at all. I turned and walked away. At exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I was waiting for him at the Civil Affairs Bureau gate. He arrived 20 minutes late, when the car stopped in front of me. Bai Luoshi sat in the front passenger seat. Bai Luoshi gently rolled down the car window and smiled at me softly. Sister Nanji, don't misunderstand. Hanjo Gij said he'll sign the contract this afternoon and asked to take me along for a bit. What are you two doing? She pretended to be dumb on purpose. He Hanjo got out of the driver's seat, frowning as he looked at me. What are you doing at the Civil Affairs Bureau? Is this the urgent matter you mentioned? He was wearing the suit I picked for him this morning, and the tie clip was the birthday gift I gave him last year. I didn't look at him, but at Bai Luoshi. Miss Bai, could you please stop the car? I have some private matters to attend to with President. Bai Luoshi's smile froze. He Hanjo grew impatient. If you have something to say, just say it. Luoshi isn't a stranger, not a stranger. When those 4 words pierced in, it hurt more than I expected. I nodded, took out the already printed divorce agreement from my bag, and handed it directly to him. Sign. I've scheduled a number inside. We'll be there soon. He Hanjo was stunned. He took those papers, flipped through them, and his expression changed from confusion to disbelief. Shinanji, are you crazy? I am perfectly sane, I said. Bai Luoshi spoke softly from the side. Nanji, sis, don't act on impulse. Brother Hanjo, Miss Bai. I cut her off, my tone very calm. When I'm speaking with him, please keep quiet. White Du's eyes immediately reddened. He Hanjo pulled me aside, lowering his voice. What the hell are you doing? Is it not okay to make a scene at home? Do you have to make a fool of yourself on the street? I looked at him. At this moment, what he cares about is still his pride. He Hanjo, I said, who were you with last night in room 2106 at the Xingwan Hotel? Which woman gave you that Patek Philippe on your wrist? Aren't you supposed to go to the golf course on Wednesdays to talk business? Those business photos, she took them for you, right? His face finally changed, turned pale. How did you? Balushi's moments only blocked the company group. I smiled. Tell her to check the grouping before she posts photos next time. While Hanjo released his grip on my arm, as if he suddenly didn't know me. 3 years, he had probably never heard me speak to him in this tone. I've always been the gentle, compliant Shu Nanji who waits for him to come home every time. Are you sure you want to push it to this point? He fixed his eyes on me, his voice cooling. Shinanji, when you married me, what did I do to you? The house you're living in now, the car you're driving, without me you have nothing. Think it through. The divorce agreement states you leave with nothing. I know, I said. I signed for leaving with nothing. He choked. He probably thinks that what I mean by leaving the family with nothing is something I'm forced to do. He doesn't know that there are some things in this world that his empire Grip's shares can't buy, for example, freedom, for example, dignity. Do you want me to go in and sign, or should I turn around and walk away now? I asked him, while Hanjo stood in place, silent for about 10 seconds. Balusher called him from the car. Hanjoji, should I get off first? He paid no attention to her, he just looked at me, with something in his eyes that I couldn't understand, reluctance, anger, or perhaps the thing that had been there for 3 years suddenly saying it would leave, and his instinctive resistance. Okay, he said. Shinanji, this is what you asked for. He signed. From the moment he went into the moment he came out, it added up to less than 20 minutes. The red notebook was replaced with a green one. The marriage certificate became a divorce certificate. As I stepped out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, I suddenly felt the air grow lighter. While Hanjo stood on the steps, looking down at his phone, Balushui was still in his car. When are you moving your things out? He asked me, his tone like he was handling work. I finished moving, I said. He looked up abruptly. I don't want any of the furniture and appliances listed clearly in the divorce agreement. Personal belongings were taken by the moving company this morning while you were in the meeting. The keys are in the cabinet in the entryway. His hand gripping the phone tightened. Shinanji, have you been ready all along? I didn't answer. I turned and walked forward a few steps, then suddenly remembered something. I turned back to him and said, by the way, the Southeast Asia contract, the profit-sharing negotiation records are in your email. The Jade brand that the general manager's wife likes, the brand and color code are noted in my memo. Vice President Lee knows how to follow up. He stood in place, like a nail hammered there. I didn't look back again. On the way back, I opened the company backend and submitted my resignation. The HR director approved it online. All these years of me insisting on keeping our illegal relationship hidden ended up benefiting me. In the company system, I am only President Secretary Shinanji. No one knows that I also have another identity, the wife of Ho Hanjo. No, his ex-wife. After I submitted the application, I opened my phone and saw a message from Ho Hanjo. For tomorrow's board PPT, send it to my email. I did not reply. I opened the memo, found another folder containing all client data, supplier resources, and operational details of the 3 core business lines that I have organized over the past 3 years for the Empire Group. Delete with one click. Recycle bin emptied. The city outside the window was quickly receding, and my phone screen lit up briefly, a new message popping up. It was a number without a name or note. Miss, the old gentleman says, are you coming back? I looked at this message and fell silent for a long time. 3 years. When I married, I swore to grow old with him. It took me 3 years to turn myself into the most useful tool in all of his plans. He thought Shinanji was just a submissive wife, a competent secretary. He didn't know that the youngest daughter of the Shin family, who had been separated for years, had within 3 months of introductory training learned how to build a business empire from scratch and how to bring it to ruin in a single afternoon. I sat in the taxi, flipping my phone over and looking out the window. The traffic kept flowing without end. I should leave this city as well, but not in a fleeing posture. Chapter 2, Resignation Letter, submitted late at night, an hour after the divorce. I returned to the company. The junior girl at the front desk looked surprised when she saw me. Secretary Shin, didn't you take leave? Are you feeling better? Much better, thank you. I smiled at her. No one knows I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau. No one knows that the spouse field of Hanjo has, from now on, been filled by someone else. I swiped my card to enter the elevator, and the floor numbers jumped up one by one. The Empire Group headquarters building, 37th floor, a city center CBD core worth every inch. When I first walked into this building 3 years ago, it was still a small company renting half a floor, with fewer than 300 employees. Back then, Hanjo wasn't exactly President Hua, he had just branched off from the Hua family. And in his hands was only this barely standing trading company. The cash flow on the books could not last more than 3 months. It was I who toiled through 70 consecutive nights to rebuild the Southeast Asia supply chain for him. I was the one who connected clients for him at the drinking table, drank until my stomach bled, and secured the first order worth tens of millions. I am the one who turned the Imperial Group from a trading intermediary into the business empire spanning real estate, cross-border e-commerce, and new energy. In a media interview, Hanjo said that the Empire Group's success cannot be achieved without his wife's support. The media asked, "What does Mrs. Hu do?" He said she comes from an ordinary family and that taking care of me at home is enough. I was in front of the TV watching his interview, while I was still revising his speech for tomorrow. From an ordinary family, yes. When I married him, I really was from an ordinary family. Everyone in the Shin family believed I was dead in the year I disappeared, and I, for him, cut off all contact with that world. The elevator doors opened. 37th floor, my workstation is in the executive suite. The secretary's office is empty now. All the lights are off, and only the printer's standby light is on. I turn on the computer and log into the company's back-end system, Human Resources Module, Resignation Application, System Prompt. Your current position is Presidential Secretary, and the resignation process will be approved at the ordinary staff level. I looked at these words and suddenly felt a bit amused. Ordinary staff. 3 years ago, when Hanjo asked me to come to work at the company, he said, "There's nothing to do at home anyway. Come help me." He told me to start as a secretary. There was no contract, no onboarding registration. The employee records in the company system were later self-entered by me. The position was Chief Executive Secretary, and the salary column read to be computed separately by the President's office. 3 years, I have always been on a separate accounting basis. In the first month, the CFO said, "Mrs. Hua's salary, Mr. Hua has approved, will be charged to the President's office budget." Then it faded away. "I have never drawn a penny of salary from the Empire Group," Hanjo said. "The company is like my own home. What salary to take? How much money? Swipe my card directly." At the time I thought he was hurting for me. Now thinking back, he probably never regarded me as a real employee of the Empire Group. There is no contract, no social security, no housing provident fund, and not a single complete file that can be retrieved in the HR system. He never thought that one day this person would leave. He also never thought about what the Empire Group would do after this person left. I have finished filling out the resignation application. Reason for leaving, personal reasons, effective leaving date, today. Handover notes have been organized and archived to the President Office shared drive. Southeast Asia project materials, client resources, supplier contact details, and operational data for the 3 core business lines have been electronically archived. The password is taped on a paper note affixed to the drawer of the employee's own desk. Click to submit. System shows, submitted, awaiting the Director of Human Resources approval. 3 minutes later, approval granted. The approval note from Director Su, the head of HR, has only one line, received, will handle the handover tomorrow. She probably thinks that when a secretary resigns, there is no need for fuss. Nobody knows what this resignation means. I shut down the computer and began to pack up my desk. For 3 years, this workspace has been stacked with Hanjo's work documents. Every major contract for the Empire Group has been revised on this desk of mine, from trade agreements in Southeast Asia to joint venture plans in the new energy sector, from the BP of the first round of financing to his speech at the bell-ringing ceremony last month at the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Every successful deal of his has my notes on it, but I flipped through these documents, and not a single page bears my name. The signature on the contract is Hanjo. The closing in the email is Hanjo. The legal representative of the company is Hanjo. I, Shinanji, am just a President's secretary under separate accounting. I have organized all the documents and put them in the filing cabinet. The key is left on Sister Sue's desk. The phone lit up for a moment. It was a confirmation message from the moving company. "Miss Shin, all your belongings have been moved into Building A of Yunqi Mansion. And the furniture has been arranged according to your request, I answered. Thank you, Yunchu Pavilion, the house my mother left me. Hanzhou doesn't know this place. 3 years ago, when I married him, I locked the keys to this house and everything of the Shen family into the bank's safe deposit box. He said that after we got married, we would live at his place. He said that it would be fine to just move everything from the place you used to live, and bring all your things over. My eyes reddened at the time, and I felt this was the security he gave me. Only now do I understand that he wanted to erase everything from my past, wipe it clean into a blank sheet. Let him write. He succeeded. For 3 years, I have had no friends, not a single enterprise of my own. There hasn't been a day when I've truly been Shenanji. The phone screen lit up again. This time the message came from another number, that number with no label. Miss, the old gentleman said, are you coming back? I sat on the chair for a long time. Outside the window, the city lights were brilliant, and the logo of the Empire State Building gleamed harshly in the night. When I left the Shen family 3 years ago, the last thing I said to my father was, I will prove to you that the person I chose for myself was not wrong. My dad fell silent for a long time and said 3 words, you leave. My mom stood at the doorway, saying nothing, just looking at me. I thought I could prove in 3 years that Hanzhou was worth my choice, as it turned out. Whether it's worth it doesn't depend on whether he has the ability, but on whether he has put you in his heart. But in Hanzhou's heart, there has never been me. What he needed was only a capable secretary, a compliant wife, a tool who could make PPTs for him, hold back his wine, and manage his company. When this tool decided to quit, he wouldn't even feel a twinge of heartache. All he would think is, who will help me coordinate the Southeast Asia contracts? I picked up my phone and replied to a message, tell the old gentleman that I'm not coming back. The other party replied instantly, Miss, I typed a few more characters, I will come back, but not as the youngest daughter of the Shen family. I will come back as the acquirer of the Empire Group. Send complete. I turned off my phone, grabbed my bag, and took one last look at this workspace. The table is spotless, not even a single note left behind. Hanzhou, you think Shenanji is just a former wife who left with nothing. You think I have nothing at all. You are wrong. When I was walking out, I bumped into Vice President Li, who was working overtime in the corridor. He saw me carrying the bag and froze for a moment. Secretary Shen, you're leaving so late. Yeah, I said, I won't come back anymore. He didn't react. Got fired, I said. Deputy General Manager Li opened his mouth, wanted to say something, but probably felt that there wasn't much to say about a secretary leaving, and just nodded. Then, let's keep in touch often in the future. I smiled, and didn't answer. Keep in touch. 3 years as colleagues. I didn't even save his phone number. Doesn't like me talking too much with men in the company. I step into the elevator. The moment the door closed, I watched the floor numbers jump down one by one, like a countdown. The countdown is to Emperor Empire Group of Hanzhou. Chapter 3. The President Calls Names. And the HR department's answer left him puzzled. The next morning, Hanzhou came to the company as usual. He didn't know that I had already left. He didn't even go home to take a quick look. After the divorce procedure at the Civil Affairs Bureau was completed, he said he would take Bai Lushai back and let me figure out how to get home by myself. I didn't say a word. He probably thought I would wait at home for him to come back, as usual, waiting for him to stumble and drunk, waiting for me to take off his coat, make him honey water, listen to him complain about how difficult the midday clients are. Then early the next morning, I went to the company even earlier than him, printed out today's schedule and placed it on his desk, brewed unsweetened American coffee, and arranged all the meeting materials in order. 3 years, and every day is like this. He's gotten used to it, so used to it that he thinks all of this is natural, so used to it that on the day after the divorce, he can still go to work as if nothing happened, as if nothing at all had occurred. HR Director Sister Sue later told me that his presentation that morning was bigger than usual. 3 black Maybachs parked in front of the company, with 4 bodyguards in front and 4 behind. Hanzhou wore a new suit, not the deep blue set I left a note about for the assistant this morning, but a silver gray haute couture piece I hadn't seen before. The tie clip has also changed. It's no longer the one I gave him for his birthday last year. It has been replaced with a limited edition set with a diamond embedded, a gift from Bai Lushi. When he walked into the company lobby with a group of people, the receptionist and the security guards held their breath. President Hu was in a bad mood today. Everyone could see it. This guy is like this. The less happy he is, the bigger the scene he makes. What about this morning's schedule? He stopped in the center of the lobby, looked around, and frowned. The assistant who had been trailing behind, Xiao Zhou, hurried up, holding a folder in his arms. Mr. Ho, at 10 o'clock this morning is the signing ceremony for the Southeast Asia project. At our group's 36th floor large conference room, at 2 o'clock this afternoon is the board's regular meeting. The briefing materials should be on your desk. Should, Ho Hanjo frowned. What do you mean should? Where is Secretary Shin? Bring her up. He raised his wrist to check the time, 9:20. At this time normally I should already be waiting for him in the first floor lobby, holding today's entire itinerary. With his coffee beside me, no sugar, American, just the right temperature to drink. Today there is no trace of me in the lobby. There is nothing at all. Only Xiao Zhou was sweating profusely as he flipped through the folders. Mr. Ho, Secretary Shin, she hasn't replied to me yet. Call her. Ho Hanjo said coldly. Have her come directly to the 36th floor. Before the signing ceremony, I want to review the profit-sharing plan for Southeast Asia again. And all negotiation points are with her. When he spoke, his tone was as firm as ever, as if I were still the Secretary Shin who dropped everything at a moment's notice. It's just like a divorce certificate is only a sheet of waste paper. I will still appear before him at the first moment anytime he calls me. Just like before, Ho Hanjo led people into the elevator and directly headed to the 36th floor. The large conference room was already prepared. The nameplates for the signing parties were arranged neatly, with the Imperial Group on the left and the Southeast Asia representative on the right. Media reporters also arrived. Guns and cameras aimed from the back. This signing marks the most important strategic partnership for the Imperial Group this year. After the deal is signed, 70% of the distribution channels in the Southeast Asian market will belong to the Imperial Group. I negotiated this painstakingly, line by line. Ho Hanjo stood in front of the conference table and flipped through the signed documents that had already been printed on the desk. He was probably looking at those terms. Every clause, every figure, every profit-sharing ratio was something I wrote. Where's Shinanji? He kept his head down and asked Xiao Zhou. Xiao Zhou hesitated. Mr. Hu, Secretary Shin is still unreachable. What do you mean by unreachable? Ho Hanjo slammed the documents on the desk. Didn't she come to work today? Where are the clock and records? It's 9:40. The signing ceremony is about to begin in 20 minutes. Ho Hanjo's patience had clearly run out. He took out his own phone and made the first call to me. Power off. Second call. Power off. Third call. Still powered off. His face finally changed. Not the usual pale blue of daily anger, but a perplexed, uneasy, dazed look, as if suddenly realizing that what he was holding had disappeared. Let Sister Sue come up. Sister Sue is the Human Resources Director, who has been with the company for almost 6 years. She was downstairs handling the employees' payroll when she received the call, and upon hearing that General Hua personally requested her, she dropped what she was doing and rushed upstairs. When she fumbled breathlessly opened the door to the 36th floor conference room, she saw a room full of tense faces. Ho Hanjo stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, with his back to everyone. Where is Shinanji? His voice was even colder than before. Sister Sue was stunned. She thought President Ho knew last night, around 11, when she approved the resignation request. She even took a look at the applicant. Shinanji, the president's secretary. She felt that this time point was quite strange, resigning in the middle of the night, with the resignation taking effect the next day, but she didn't give it much thought. After all, the position of executive secretary to the president is important, yet not considered important. In the Imperial Group, everyone knew that Secretary Shin was brought here personally by President, and the connection wasn't ordinary, but no one dared to ask what exactly that connection was. Some people guess she is a relative of the Ho family. Some people guess she is the woman Mr. Ho keeps outside. Some people even guess she is Mr. Ho's secretly married wife, but no one can confirm it. Sister Sue has reviewed personnel files for 3 years, and Shinanji's file is pitifully thin. There is no employment registration, no educational certificate, and no copy of an identity card. Not even the medical examination report. There is only a simple piece of employee information. President Secretary, employee number 1027, with the joining date on April 12, 3 years ago. The salary section remains blank to this day. At first, Sujia asked Ho Hanjo how Secretary Shin's salary was determined. Ho Hanjo said, "It's none of your business, I'll pay her myself." Later, the financial director asked once as well, and Ho Hanjo replied, "The funds come from the president's office." Since then, no one asked again. For 3 years, Shinanji's name has hung under the President's office on the Imperial Group roster, like a staple that can be replaced at any moment, so last night when Sister Sue saw the resignation letter, though it felt sudden, she still approved it. A secretary who hasn't even signed a contract yet. The resignation process is as simple as that for an intern. President who? Sister Sue spoke cautiously. Secretary Shin's resignation application was approved last night. Hanzhou turned around. He looked as if something had frozen him in place. His brows were furrowed, and his eyes held a mood he had never seen before. What resignation application? Well, it's a resignation request from the company's back end. Sister Sue's voice grew quieter. Submitted at 11:47 last night, for personal reasons. Resignation effective yesterday. After I approved it, she didn't need to come to work today. The conference room fell silent for about 5 seconds. Who said she was resigning? Hanzhou's voice suddenly rose. Everyone stepped back in fear. The folder in little Zhou's hand almost fell to the ground. Ms. Sue's face paled. President, this application was submitted by her herself. The process was all in order. I thought that. You thought. What did you think? Hanzhou slapped the conference table. The nameplate on the table rattled and toppled over in a wide sweep. She is my secretary. Does she want to resign without my approval? What power do you as HR have to approve? Sister Sue's tears were about to fall. Executive Hua. According to company policy, a normal employee's resignation application only needs to be approved by the HR department, ordinary staff. These 4 words were decided by Hanzhou himself. 3 years ago he had the HR department place Shinanji's file under the ordinary staff category, and Sister Sue just did as she was instructed. Hanzhou stood there. His expression so pale it looked like he had been slapped in public. He hadn't really thought that one day these 4 characters would come back to bite him. Where are her things? He asked. Sister Sue hurriedly said, Secretary Shin's workstation has been cleared. The keys are on my desk. What about her phone? What about the home landline? Hanzhou's voice was a bit hoarse. No one could answer him. Xiaozhou gathered his courage and spoke. Mr. Secretary Shin, she may have simply changed jobs. Hanzhou suddenly turned to him, and Xiaozhou immediately bit his lip. The atmosphere in the meeting room was suffocating. Hanzhou stood in place, clutching his phone, his knuckles whitening. He was probably thinking, Shinanji, what right do you have? What right do you have to just leave like that? What right do you have to not leave even a word? Why the hell? You won't even give me a chance to say you should go. But no one knows what he's thinking. He was silent for a long time, then said one sentence. The signing ceremony has been postponed. He turned and walked toward the elevator. His assistant and bodyguards hurriedly followed behind. Xiaozhou caught up and asked, President Ho, when can we refuse? Until we find Shinanji. The elevator doors closed. Hanzhou looked at his own reflection in the elevator, his hand holding the phone trembling slightly. Chapter 4. His first reaction is that there is no successor. Hanzhou went crazy. Sister Sue later recounted the scene to me, using these 3 words, after the signing ceremony was postponed. The entire Empire Group headquarters fell into a strange silence. The door to the 36th floor grand conference room was kept shut. Media reporters were arranged to wait downstairs in the reception room, and the Southeast Asian partner representatives sat in the adjacent lounge, their faces growing paler and more sour. And what was Hanzhou doing? He went to my workstation, on the 37th floor, in the executive suite by the window. The desk was clean, not a single pencil cup left. The keys to the filing cabinet lay on the desk, beside a yellow post-it note that had the computer login password and the cabinet password written on it. He stood in front of my desk, for perhaps a brief moment there, a daze. For 3 years, this desk has always been piled with files, sticky notes, draft contracts, and markers in various colors. Every morning before he enters the office, the day's schedule and coffee are already arranged on the desk. There is nothing on the table today. There is only a key and a sticky note. He picked up the sticky note and read it over and over several times. There isn't a single extra word on it. There is no sorry, no take care, no thank you for taking care of me for 3 years. It's just a handover, formal and official. Hanzhou crumpled the sticky note into a ball and threw it into the trash can. Then he opened my computer. Xiaozhou reminded from the side, President Hua, Secretary Shin's computer password has been changed, and the IT department hasn't. Before he could finish speaking, Hanzhou had already typed in the password on the Keyboard 891020, my birthday. He remembers, he just never knew how to express what this date means. The computer is on. There is only one folder on the desktop, named Handover Materials. While Hanjo clicked open, Southeast Asia Project. The subfolder neatly arranges 17 documents, negotiation records, counterparties' legal opinions, profit-sharing calculations, and clause-by-clause annotations of contract terms. Each item is marked with the latest progress and the risks. To watch out for: New Energy Sector. The subfolder contains 43 documents, from project initiation documents to supply chain lists, from government subsidy policy analyses to a comparison table of competitors' advantages and disadvantages. Real Estate Sector. 32 documents, covering the Empire Group's 11 ongoing projects in 7 cities nationwide, with independent progress summaries and funding schedule timelines for each project. There is also a customer resource library. Detailed profiles of more than 300 core clients, from the other party's birthday, family situation, consumption preferences, to the key points of the most recent meeting and the timeline for the next follow-up. While Hanjo scrolls the mouse wheel, flipping pages one by one, everyone in the president's office was lurking outside. No one dared to come in. He finished going through all the documents and fell silent for a long time. Then he asked the first question: who is handling the profit sharing plan in Southeast Asia? Xiaozhou was stunned. President Hua, it has always been Secretary Shen handling the coordination. We haven't dealt with anyone else. And the new energy joint venture agreement, where is the contact information for the other party's person in charge? That is also with Secretary Shen. She has been personally handling the liaison before, for the 7 ongoing real estate projects. Who will compile the progress summary? Secretary Shen collects them all and sends them to you every month. The project managers all contact her directly. While Hanjo's temples throbbed, over 300 clients, his voice was lowered. Who can name every one of them? Who can clearly explain each person's follow-up status? No one answered. The entire president's office was quiet like a funeral home. While Hanjo slammed his fist on the table, the keyboard popped up, and the screen rocked. Little Zhou was scared and stepped back 3 paces. Find me someone. Who hands how roared. Pull all personnel files, vice presidents, department directors, project managers, everyone. Make me a list of who can take over this burden. 30 minutes later, a list lay on his desk. There are 382 current employees at the Empire Group, 6 vice presidents, 15 department directors, and 23 project managers, who Hanjo looked over one by one. Deputy General Manager Li, in charge of Southeast Asia Trade Line, has followed me for 2 years. Understands the overall business framework, but has never participated in profit-sharing negotiations. Director Wang, head of the New Energy Sector, technical background, understands products but not clients, cannot drink or schmooze. Last time with the partner he left halfway through the meal. Manager Chen, the most senior in the real estate sector, manages 3 projects yet complains of being busy every day. If 4 more projects were added, he might resign on the spot. While Hanjo slammed the list on the table. Just these people, he asked with a cold sneer. Not a single capable fighter. The Imperial Consortium employed over 300 people, and they can't even find one to take over Shenanji's shift. Sister Su spoke cautiously. Mr. Hua, Secretary Shen's workload indeed, really quite large. She alone basically handles several positions at once. Your travel assistant, the President's Office Administrator, and the coordinator for 3 business divisions, and she has cultivated relationships with clients for many years. Many clients only recognize her. That's enough. While Hanjo cut her off, he doesn't want to hear these things. He doesn't want to hear others tell him how capable Shenanji is, how important Shenanji is, how she alone has shouldered half of the Empire Group. These things he isn't unaware of. He just habitually ignores them, just as a person does not appreciate the air they breathe until one day they suddenly suffocate. While Hanjo was silent for a long time, then he said a sentence that left everyone present dumbfounded. Call her, everyone, each person call her 3 times, message, WeChat, text, until her phone is on. Xiaozhou opened his mouth. President Hu, Secretary Shen, her phone is off, then wait until she's back online. Hanjo suddenly stood up, the chair banging heavily against the wall. His chest rose and fell violently, his eyes like a trapped beast. Yes, a trapped animal. He still thinks I'm just throwing a tantrum. He thinks my turning off the phone is only temporary, that my resignation was just a momentary impulse, that even with the divorce certificate I would still appear obediently as soon as he gets angry and orders someone to find me. He doesn't know this disappearance is permanent. That afternoon, after the Southeast Asian partner waited for 2 hours, they canceled the signing. The other party's representative spoke very directly to Hanjo on the phone. Mr. Hua, we don't care about your internal matters, but without Secretary Shin present, we will not sign this word. What we trust is not the Empire Group, but Secretary Shin. After hanging up the phone, Hanjo slammed the whole office. A piece of the glass wall in the 36th floor executive conference room shattered. Xiaozhou secretly took a photo and sent it to Sister Sue, who then forwarded it to me. I looked at the glass shards scattered all over the floor in the photo, and I felt nothing in my heart. There is no straightforward, no heartache, no pleasure of revenge. There is only a kind of calm cold, like after the last leaf of autumn falls. The bare branches face the gray sky. Hanjo, you are only now beginning to feel sorry for the Empire Group. What you fret over is the profit you are about to lose. It is the customers who might slip away because Shinanji is not around. It is the business empire that you cannot uphold by yourself. What you lament is your soon-to-be severed left and right arms, not me. From start to end, what you cared about was never Shinanji as a person. Chapter 5, The Out-of-Control Press Conference. I'm wearing a different work ID. 3 days later, Imperial Group new product launch. This press conference was scheduled 2 months ago. At that time I had just secured government subsidies for the new energy sector for Hanzhou and clinched an exclusive distribution agreement for Southeast Asia. He was in a good mood and told the board that Imperial Group would ring the bell at the Hong Kong Stock Exchange this year, and the new product launch had to be spectacular. He entrusted me with full responsibility, so I booked the most expensive hotel banquet hall in the city for him, hired one of the top 3 public relations teams in the country. The media list ranged from financial channels to Fashion Week magazines, and I personally tasted each snack for the tea break one by one. Hanzhou is only responsible for delivering the opening speech on stage. He doesn't know anything. For the past 3 years, everything that has appeared on stage has been written by me. This time, of course, it was no exception. He gave Xiaozhou a life or death order. He must find me and have me send over the speech. Xiaozhou shuffled through the company's shared drive and found all the historical versions of the speech, except for the latest one, the speech for this new product launch event, that was missing. There was only a single text file lying in the folder. The title is, An Outline of the Speech for Mr. Huo. When opened, there was only one sentence inside. Hanzhou, you write it yourself. Xiaozhou said his legs went weak at the moment, but he forced himself to screenshot the line and send it to Hanzhou. Hanzhou replied with 2 words, very good. I didn't know what he meant by very good, nor did I care. The press conference is scheduled for 2 p.m. in the banquet hall on the 3rd floor of that 5-star hotel in the city center. The lighting, sound, and LED big screen are all specifications I personally selected. The media registration area is filled with the Imperial Group logos, and reporters with long guns and short cannons cram into the back rows. I'm sitting in a cafe across from the hotel, watching the to-and-fro crowd through the floor-to-ceiling window. Xiaozhou is at the door, in an ill-fitting suit, anxiously glancing at his phone. Vice General Li chatted with reporters at the sign-in area, his smile forced. Everyone was here, only Bai Lushi was not present. That did surprise me a bit. Logically, when Hanzhou first attended a public occasion as a bachelor, Bai Lushi should not let this opportunity pass. Hadn't she always wanted to stand by his side openly and officially? But it doesn't matter. Today's press conference wasn't originally about watching her. 2:10 in the afternoon, Hanzhou's convoy arrived. 3 black Maybachs stopped at the hotel entrance. He wore an all-black suit and tied the gray tie I picked for him last year. He probably hadn't noticed that this tie was bought by me, just grabbing one from the wardrobe at random. When he got out of the car, the camera flashes from the media reporters crackled and popped all at once. Hanzhou walked into the hotel with a blank expression, no waving, no smile, no pause to accept interviews from any media. Xiaozhou trotted after him, holding a stack of documents in his arms, through the hotel's revolving door. I saw Hanzhou walk to the sign-in wall and take the marker handed by the etiquette lady. He paused for a moment. I guessed that in the past, every time I signed, I stood on his right-hand side and handed him the pen. Today the hostess stood on his left-hand side, and he involuntarily looked to the right. There was no one around. After he signed, with a bold stroke, he walked into the banquet hall without looking back. At 2:30 p.m., the press conference officially began. I didn't go in. I was in a cafe across the street, watching the live broadcast of the conference on my phone. After the hosts Opening remarks, Hanjo walked onto the stage and stood in front of the microphone I picked out for him. The LED big screen lit up, and the Imperial Group logo slowly rotated. "Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon," he spoke, and his voice was as deep and pleasant as ever. "Today, the Imperial Group is holding a new product launch here to introduce to you our latest product line in the field of new energy." He came to a stop because the pause was so obvious. The director switched to a close up of his face. He was in the first row under the stands. In the middle of the first row, next to the seat labeled with the name tag Hanjo, there was also an empty seat. The nameplate bore 2 characters, Shinanji. That was something I arranged myself about half a month ago. As per convention, when Hanjo attends major events, I, as the president's secretary, must sit in the front row to record his instructions and coordinate media needs at any time. This time, I'm leaving. The famous brand is still there. Xiao Zhou didn't dare to move. Hanjo looked at that empty seat for 2 seconds, then withdrew his gaze. He continued his speech, but he is not giving a speech. He is reading from a script, reading a piece he wrote himself, stumbling and garbled. The preface doesn't match the following content. The previous sentence talks about the prospects of the new energy industry, and the next suddenly jumps to corporate social responsibility, with a whole paragraph about the core parameters of the new product missing in between. There are whisperings in the journalists section. The barrage exploded. President/Hong, what's wrong with you today? This draft reads as if it were written by an intern. Wasn't Was speech really awesome before? Today was it cursed with a hex? The Empire Group's press conference is a total flop. I feel sorry for the distributors in the audience. I took a sip of coffee and watched Hanjo's stiff back on the screen. People who can't write speeches will have trouble just reading them aloud. He can't perform it anymore. By the 15th minute, Hanjo had completely broken the script. He set down the heap of messy printed pages in his hand, supported himself on the podium with both hands, and looked at everyone in the audience. Silence. Then he said one sentence. "This piece today wasn't written by me." The audience fell silent. Everyone before this, none of them were written by me. The reporters exchanged glances, the cameras focusing on his face. Hanjo clenched the microphone, his voice tight. All the speeches, all the negotiation plans, and all client proposals from the Empire Group over the past 3 years were written by one person. This person is Shinanji, my secretary. The whole venue erupted in an uproar. The barrage instantly flooded across the screen. Empire Group President Secretary, what kind of easy reading story script is this? Wait a minute. Why did he bring up the secretary who resigned at the press conference? Sisters, how did I smell a big scoop? Hanjo seemed not to notice the commotion below the stage and kept speaking. 3 days ago, she resigned. No warning, no handover, gave me no chance to persuade her to stay. I'm standing here today, not because I want to stand here, it's because this press conference was scheduled 2 months ago, and I cannot cancel it. He took a deep breath. But I must tell everyone present. The Empire Group may be facing some problems recently. The Southeast Asia signing has been delayed. The progress of the new energy projects is about 1 month behind schedule, and 3 of the 7 ongoing real estate projects have incurred cost overruns. The reason is simple. The person who used to manage all these things for me is no longer here. The banquet hall was quiet to the point where you could hear the camera shutter. Vice President Li's face turned pale. Xiao Zhou was signaling frantically from the audience, trying to get him to stop. Hanjo did not stop. He looked straight at the camera, as if speaking to someone who was not present. I put down the coffee cup and stood up, because I knew what was going to happen next. It's my turn to go on stage. In front of the hotel entrance, a black Rolls-Royce was parked in front of me. The car door opened, and a gray-haired elder sat in the rear seat, wearing a gray Zhongshan suit, with a sandalwood walking stick in hand. "Miss." The driver stepped out to open the door for me. The old gentleman asked me to come receive you. "Wait," I said. I turned my head to look at the hotel entrance. Hanzo was still inside, announcing to everyone that his empire was collapsing, and I was the one who toppled the first domino, someone who is about to enter and take over everything. I bend down and get into the car. The moment the car door shuts, I take off the phone case. A thin card is tucked into the back. It's the new work badge that was prepared half a month ago. 5 characters are printed on the top. Lin family. Group Strategic Investment Department, Shinanji, Chapter 6, the Lin Family Group's acquisition conditions. When I arrived, the press conference was already in a complete mess. After Hanjo's self-revealing remarks, the reporters went wild. Financial reporters were calling back to the newsroom to apply for the front page layout. Gossip reporters were uploading live videos to major social platforms. with increasingly explosive headlines such as Empire Group President Reveals Company Crisis. The mysterious departing secretary is actually the mastermind behind the Empire Group, and Mr. Who's out-of-control press conference, 1,000 billion empire propped up by one person, Xiao Zhou and Vice President Li are leaping around backstage, while the public relations team hustles to call media one by one, begging them to show mercy, while Hanzhou sits in the front row, lowering his head, not knowing what he is thinking. The lighting in the entire banquet hall was still on, and the LED screen on the stage was still looping the propaganda video of the Empire Group, but everyone knew that this press conference was already over. The Empire Group's new product launch had become the Empire Group's crisis PR scene. Then the ballroom doors suddenly opened, two carved wooden doors, as if pushed open from outside by a gust of wind. Everyone instinctively turned their heads to look first. Two bodyguards in black suits walked in, taking positions on either side of the main door, then a woman dressed in a silver-gray professional suit skirt, her high heels tapped on the marble floor, the sound not loud, but each step felt like pressing on everyone's heartbeat. Her hair was piled up, no longer the low ponytail that Hanzhou was used to. A pair of pearl earrings hangs from my earlobes, which I bought myself at an auction last month. Every pair of eyes on the floor suddenly fixed on me. Several veteran employees recognized me, gasping in astonishment, and the champagne flute in there. Hands nearly slipped. Xiao Zhou stood stunned in the corner, his mouth forming an O. Vice General Li's face shifted from white to red, then back to white, finally settling into a nearly devout, stunned expression. I ignored everyone's gaze and walked straight to the front row of the media area. That is the Lin Group's representative seat, reserved since as early as half a month ago. I didn't look at Hanzhou, but I know he is looking at me, because from the moment I walked through this door, he stood up. He stood in the front row, like a pillar nailed to the ground, staring at me unmoving. He probably never imagined that Shenanji had this side of herself. For 3 years, in front of him I was always with a low ponytail, flat shoes, and a plain, simple look. His suit was always sharp, and my clothes were always from discounted Uniqlo. He once said, "Who are you dressing so well for? The person cooking at home and taking care of the kids just needs to be comfortable." At the time I thought he was being considerate. Now I think he just hates it when I embarrass him. I walked to the seat of the Lin Group's representative and turned around. There were 5 rows of seats between me and Hanzhou, and the entire 3 years of lies of the Empire Group. He looked at me, his lips moving. I heard him call my name, Nanji. It's not Shenanji, it's not Secretary Shen, it's Nanji. He only calls me that in the rarest moments. When was the last time? It was probably the night I helped him close his first big deal. He got drunk and hugged me, saying, "Nanji, it's so good to have you," and then there was nothing more. I nodded slightly at Hanzhou, as if greeting an ordinary business partner. Then I picked up the badge on my chest and aimed it at the reader on the table. Ding! The Empire Group logo on the LED screen suddenly disappeared, replacing it as a line of text. Letter of intent to acquire 51% of the Imperial Group. All the reporters in the room stood up. The shutter sounds erupted, and the flashlights lit the banquet hall as bright as daylight. Hanzhou's face turned utterly pale. He stepped back, toppling the chair behind him. Xiao Zhou let out a scream, then covered his mouth hurriedly. Deputy General Manager Li pointed at the big screen, his fingers trembling. How could this be? Lin Group? Why would the Lin Group? Ladies and gentlemen, I spoke, my voice traveling through every corner of the venue via the sound system, as steady as a lake frozen over. Good afternoon, I am Shenanji, Senior Vice President of the Strategic Investment Department of the Lin Group. No one spoke, no one dared to speak. I continued. Lin Group completed an agreement to acquire 51% of Empire Group's shares 3 days ago. This acquisition was personally orchestrated by me and has passed the regulatory review of the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. As agreed, Lin Group will, from today, officially become the controlling shareholder of Empire Group. Next, on behalf of the Lin Group Board of Directors, I announce a few decisions. First, Mr. Hanzhou, the current chairman and CEO of the Empire Group, is relieved of the chairman position from today. The CEO position will be temporarily retained, and a separate assessment by Lin Group Strategic Investment Department will decide whether to keep the role. Second, from today, all major decisions of the Empire Group must be approved by the Lin Group Board before they can be implemented. Third, and most importantly, I paused, my gaze sweeping over the faces of everyone present. finally landing on Hanjo. He looked at me, his eyes reddened, not crying, it was the look of a cornered prey, staring at the hunter. The board of the Empire Group originally held 35% of the shares, of which 20% belonged to Mr. Ho Hanzo, and the remaining 15% was allocated by Mr. Ho Hanzo to Miss Bai Lushai himself 3 years ago without authorization. The whole room was in an uproar again. Bai Lushai, that name is not unfamiliar to the people in the Empire Group. Ho Hanzhou's personal assistant, a woman who doesn't hold a position in the company but is always by President Ho's side. 15% of the shares. Not even the board knows about this. Ho Hanzhou's face turned from white to iron gray. He probably didn't expect that I would even know about this. The Lin Group has completed the freezing procedure on Miss Bai Lushai's 15% stake. The related legal documents will be delivered to Miss Bai's residence this afternoon. All right, I clapped my hands, smiled at everyone. That concludes the Lin Group's official statement. Now we will move to the Candé session. Which reporter has a question? 3 seconds of deadly silence, then the whole venue erupted in cheers. Chapter 7 Jiang Ruowei. No, Bai Luoshi came to the company to cause trouble. I showed her a file. After the statement was released, the Empire Group headquarters was in chaos. For 3 days, on the first day, the stock price plummeted by 21%, and the Hong Kong Stock Exchange issued an inquiry letter the next day, among 7 ongoing projects, were stopped by the partners who demanded renegotiation of the contracts on the 3rd day. The Southeast Asian partner directly announced the termination of the collaboration and sent a new letter of intent for cooperation to the Lin Group. Hu Hanzhou locked himself in his office and didn't come out for 3 days. Xiao Zhou brought meals in every day, and when he came out, everything remained exactly as it was. Deputy General Li said that President Hu searches through drawers, through cabinets, through anything that can be flipped open every day, as if looking for something. I asked Deputy General Li what he was looking for. Deputy General Li glanced at me, hesitant to speak. Secretary Shin. No, President Shin. He corrected himself quickly. President Hu. He is looking for things you used to own. Sticky notes, memos, that fountain pen you used, and a packet of instant coffee left in your drawer. I didn't speak. That bag of instant coffee I bought myself. The Empire Group staff lounge has a freshly ground coffee machine, using beans imported from Brazil, but Ho Hanzhou never drinks freshly ground. He says it tastes bitter. He only drinks the instant coffee I brew. Every time I always give him 1 packet with half sugar. He said it was too sweet. I said okay, next time use less, but actually each time I add 1.5 packets of sugar. He has never noticed. Let him look for it, I said to Vice President Li. If it can't be found, then. Vice President Li opened his mouth, but in the end said nothing. Bai Lushai arrived on the 4th day. That afternoon I was sorting documents in the office that used to belong to Hu Hanzhou. Now this office is used by Lin Group's Strategic Investment Department. A sudden hurried sound of high-heeled shoes came from outside the glass window, then the door was pushed open. Bai Lushi, she was wearing a white Chanel-style jacket, stepping in on 10-centimeter stiletto heels, her eyes red and swollen, her hair a bit disheveled, looking as if she hadn't slept well for several days. She rushed in and, at first glance, found me sitting in the chair of He Hanzhou, and her whole body stiffened, like a cat that has fluffed up its fur. She suddenly realized that the creature opposite wasn't a like kind but a tiger. How are you here? Her voice was sharp and thin. This is Brother Han's office. I leaned back in the chair, set the pen in my hand down, and watched her. Miss Bai, good afternoon, I said. You came to see me. Do you have something to discuss? You froze my shares. Bai Lucy's voice rose by 8 decibels, tears spilling down as if someone had opened a faucet. What right do you have? That was given to me by Han Zhogij. It's what I deserve. You deserve it. I repeated the 4 words, then smiled. Exactly, I deserve it. Do you know how long I've known Han Zhogij? We grew up together. If you hadn't meddled, I should have been the mistress of Empire Group. I stayed by his side in his darkest times. What are you? You're just a secretary. She grew more and more agitated as she spoke. Tears and foundation smeared across her face. Looking a little disheveled, I listened quietly until she finished. Then I opened the drawer, took out a manila paper file bag, and set it on the table. The file bag bears the Lin Group logo, and at the seal there is a red confidential label. Miss White, I said, you claim you are his childhood sweetheart. Then can you tell me in which year and city you met him? Bai Lushi was startled for a moment, then puffed out her chest. Of course in Gangqing, 20 years ago. Han Zhouji and I were neighbors. We grew up together since we were little. In which district of Gangqing? Zhulong district. We lived next to each other. Went to school together every morning. I nodded, opened the file bag, and drew out a sheet of paper. Miss Bai, this is almost 30 years of household registration records for Kowloon City in Gangcheng, the original scanned copy, stamped with the official seal of the Gangcheng Civil Affairs Office. I pushed the paper in front of her. It clearly states that Mr. Hua Hanzhou's family lived in the Central West District of Gangcheng 20 years ago and has never lived in Kowloon City. Bai Luxi's face went pale. And there's more. I pulled out a second sheet. This is your own household registration record in the mainland. Bai Luxi, birth name Zhang Suifang, from Zhumadian, Hunan. After finishing high school, you came to Gangcheng to work, and your first job was as a waitress at a tea restaurant in Causeway Bay. Your joining the Empire Group was not 20 years ago, but 3 years ago. White Luoxi's lips began to tremble. Do you want me to keep reading? I asked her calmly. Your plastic surgery records, your online loan records, and the chat records where you asked 3 men for money under the name of investment. These contents have already been compiled into a dossier by the legal department of the Lin Group. You lie. White Luoxi screamed and pounced toward the desk. All of this is fabricated by you. You're jealous of me. You're jealous that Brother Hanzhou likes me. She glanced at the front of that sheet of paper after grabbing it, then she stopped moving. Because on that household registration record, clearly pasted is her pre-plastic surgery ID photo, and now this Bai Luoxi is a completely different person. Miss Bai, I stood up, walked around the desk to her front. Today I'm only talking to you about one thing. You deceived away 15% of S shares, and then used that 15% to secure almost 100 million in loans from the bank. Does know about this? Bai Luxi suddenly stepped back, hitting the bookshelf, and the bones in her back gave a dull crackling sound. That was Brother Hanzhou voluntarily giving it to me. He gave it to you willingly because you told him that you were childhood sweethearts. I took a step forward. He gave it to you willingly because you told him you had waited for him, not marrying for 20 years. He gave it to you willingly because he feels indebted to you, feels that he betrayed you back then, but none of those words are true. I stopped, stood in front of her, and looked down at her. You used his guilt, deceived him for 3 whole years, and during these 3 years, I carried the company on my shoulders, while he used my blood and sweat to support you. You say I am jealous of you. Bai Luxi, do you deserve it? She collapsed to the ground, makeup smudged all over her face, the white coat smeared with dust, and she looked like a balloon punctured by someone. Miss Shin, President Shin, she suddenly grabbed my leg, tears and snot streaming down together. Please spare me. I'll return the shares to you. I'll pay back all the money. Just let me go. I bent down and helped her up. I helped her sit in a chair and tidied up her crooked collar. Miss White, I said, the shares have to be returned. Of course, the money also has to be returned, but whether you stay or leave isn't for me to decide. She looked up at me, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. So who gets to decide then? I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. Hello. Is this the Economic Investigation Brigade, regarding the case of former shareholder Bai Luxi of the Empire Group, who is suspected of embezzlement of duties and financial fraud? My legal team has sent the evidence materials to your work email. Yes, the suspect is currently at the Empire Group headquarters. You can send someone to pick them up. Bai Luxi's face completely lost its color. Chapter 8. His plea in a share transfer agreement. That night when Bai Luxi was taken away, Ho Hanzhou finally left the office. Nobody informed him, but he saw the police car upstairs, and also saw Bai Luxian being escorted by 2 female officers into the rear seat. He rode the elevator down from the 36th floor, and happened to bump into the person I sent from the financial crime unit as they were leaving. The 2 of them locked eyes. He has lost a lot of weight, 3 days without going out, his beard unshaven, his shirt wrinkled, and he couldn't tell where the tie ended up. In the eyes that once in the board meeting made everyone afraid to raise their heads, there is now only bloodshot and something indescribable. Nanji, he called me. His voice was as hoarse as sandpaper rubbed on glass. I stopped walking and turned to look at him. Can we talk? He asked me. What about? Talk. He opened his mouth, only to find that he didn't know what to say. Bai Luxi had deceived him for 3 years, and he had handed over 15% of Empire Group's shares to a fraudster. And the price of having that deceit exposed was that he lost control of the Empire Group, and lost his most handy tool, not his wife, but the tool. I watched him stand in the center of the lobby, surrounded by staff coming and going, everyone secretly sizing up their former CEO. He had probably never been so embarrassed before. Come with me, I said. I let him into the reception room beside the lobby. The reception room wasn't big, with a sofa, 2 chairs, and a coffee table. On the wall hung an abstract painting I couldn't understand. Chosen by Ho Hanjo himself, he said at the time that this painting was worth $4 million. I said that $4 million could pay 1 month's salary for the staff. He smiled, not replying. Now I stand beneath this 4 million yuan painting, watching the man who once stood so arrogantly sit on the sofa, his back slightly bent, like a person who has had his bones pulled out. Nanji, he spoke, thank you for Bai Luxi's matter. Don't thank me, I said. I'm merely reclaiming what the Lin family should reclaim. 15% of the shares were taken by her deceit. They belong to the Lin Group's merger and acquisition asset package, and I must recover them. He was taken aback for a moment. The 2 characters Lin family maybe made him a bit taken aback. Lin family, he repeated. Lin Group, how could you? I am the daughter of the Lin family, I said. When I was 20 I was kidnapped and went missing, and I've been on the killie list for nearly 10 years. 3 years ago when I met you in the port city, I used the name Shinanji, a pseudonym. My real name is Lin Nanji, and Lin He-ting, the current chairman of Lin Group, is my biological father. Hua Hanzhou was completely stunned. He just stared at me blankly, as if looking at a stranger he'd never met. So, when you married me 3 years ago, I cut off all contact with the Lin family in order to marry you. I finished the second half of his sentence for him. My dad says you're not worthy of me. I don't believe it. I say you're capable. You're just missing an opportunity. I'm willing to use everything I have to prove to him that you're not unworthy of me. Speaking here, I paused for a moment, and then you proved to me that I am wrong. Hua Hanzhou's Adam's apple bobbed up and down. Nanji, his voice went even lower and raspier. I don't know that you are from the Lin family. I really don't know. You don't need to know, I said. All you need to know is that I am your wife, and that should be enough. But you haven't even done that. Silence, a very long, long silence. The air conditioner in the reception room hummed, cold air blowing from the vent, making the painting worth 400,000. Shake gently. Then Hanzhou did a move that no one, myself included, expected. He slid down from the sofa, kneeling on both knees, kneeling in front of me, kneeling before a woman to whom he once wouldn't even pay wages. Naneji, his voice trembled. Come back. I don't need the Imperial Group. Take everything for you. The 51% stake acquired by the Lin Group, plus the 20% left in my hand. I will prepare a share transfer document, transferring all to your name. From today, the Imperial Group is yours. I only ask you, come back. He pulled out a document from inside his suit pocket, a share transfer agreement that had already been signed and dated. Transferor, Hua Hanzhou Aseni, Shinanji, all property, unconditional gift. He placed the deed of transfer on the coffee table. Push it toward me. I looked at the document, at the cursive name he signed, and at the 3 handwritten words, I'm sorry. Then I reached out and picked up that document. A flash appeared in Hua Hanzhou's eyes. In the next moment, I tore the document apart. The sound of paper tearing was unusually clear in the reception room. I ripped it once, then ripped it again, tearing that 3-page equity transfer agreement into more than a dozen fragments. Then I tossed the fragments up in the air. The torn pieces fluttered down, like a snowfall that should not have appeared in this season. They landed on Hanzhou's hair, landed on his kneeling knees, and landed on the 4 million abstract painting behind him. Hua Hanzhou, I said, you still don't understand. I'm not here to take your wealth. The Lin Group's assets exceed those of the Empire Group by more than a zero. When I return to the Lin family, I am the sole heir of the Lin family. Do you think an Empire Group could catch my eye? He knelt there, his lips slightly parted, yet he couldn't utter a word. You kneel to me because you have lost Empire Group, I said. Not because you feel sorry for me. Your equity transfer document doesn't say gifting to my wife, it says transfer to Shinanji. You want me to come back to help you run the company, to vouch for clients, to soothe those 300 partners one by one for you. You don't love me. You have never loved me. You love every cent I can help you earn. You just didn't realize that this money tree is the Lin family's business. After saying that, I turned and left. The door to the reception room closed behind me. Through a door, I heard a dull thud from inside. It sounded like a fist smashing onto the coffee table. I did not turn around. Chapter 9. The Lin family heiress's identity is revealed at the banquet. Since then, Hanzhou has not looked for me again. Little Zhou said he moved out of the house we once lived in together for 3 years and moved into a budget hotel near the company by himself. The CEO position of the Empire Group is temporarily kept, but the Management team sent by the Lin Group has fully taken over daily operations. Hanjo still comes to the office every day, sits in the chair he has sat in for 3 years, but his signing authority has been reduced to that of a department manager. Contracts over 500,000 must be signed by the chief financial officer stationed by the Lin Group. Vice President Lee said that one day he saw Hanjo in the break room making a cup of instant coffee by himself. He added 1 sugar packet, took a sip, then sat there staring blankly at the brown liquid in the cup for a long while. He said it was too sweet, Vice President Lee said. Then he said, "Actually it was just right." I said nothing. That packet of instant coffee was left in the drawer of my workstation from before. There are 3 packets left. He found it. 1 week later, the annual charity gala of Port City. This is the most important social event of Port City's upper society every year. Politicians, businessmen, celebrities. Those who can appear at this banquet are truly people standing at the pinnacle of the pyramid. Hanjo has attended before, but he always stood in a corner as a new and promising entrepreneur. This year is different. This year, with the release of the new product from the Imperial Group, and given the backing of the Lin Group, he was seated at the second main table beside the main table by the organizers. What he doesn't know is that the Lin Group is the real sponsor of this banquet. He has no idea who the star of the night is. The dinner officially begins at 7 o'clock in the evening. The Diamond Hall of the Port City Exhibition Center shone brilliantly. 36 round tables filling the entire hall, men in tuxedos, women in haute couture gowns. Crystal chandeliers cast fragments of diamond-like light, speckling every meticulously carved smile. Hanjo wore that silver-gray suit, the one provided by Bailushi, sitting at the near left seat at the secondary main table, holding a wine glass, his expression indifferent. Then the host cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's opening remarks will be delivered by Mr. Lin He-ting, the chairman of the Lin Group, the chief sponsor of this charity banquet." The applause rose. The spotlight shone on the main table. A gray-haired, vigorous old man slowly rose, leaning on a sandalwood cane, his steps steady as he walked toward the stage. Thunderous applause erupted from the audience. Lin He-ting, the true legend of the Port City business world. 40 years ago, he started from nothing and built a marine trade empire with an old fishing boat, expanding it step by step into a 100 billion strong empire spanning 3 industries, shipping, real estate, and finance. Over the past decade, he gradually faded from the public eye, entrusting the daily affairs of the family business to his only son, Lin Boizhou. Today he stands again in the spotlight, and everyone is wondering whether Mr. Lin has some announcement to make. Hanjo paused with the wine glass in his hand. He knew Lin He-ting. No one in Port City did not know Lin He-ting, but up to now, no one has connected Lin He-ting with the female secretary who once worked as a clerk for the Imperial Group. Lin He-ting stood on the stage and cleared his throat. "Old friends and new friends, good evening." The crowd quieted down. "Tonight's charity banquet has the theme of return. The host invited me to give the opening speech. I thought for a long time, and finally decided to skip the polite words, and take this opportunity to announce a private matter about our Lin family." The eyes below the stage swept and gathered. Hanjo put down the wine glass. Lin He-ting continued, "As you all know, I have a son named Boizhou, and he is here today as well." At a position a little further back from the main table, a man in a dark blue suit slightly bowed in greeting. He is about the same age as Hanjo, but between his eyebrows and eyes, there is an added sense of steadiness and reserve. But very few people know Lin He-ting's voice suddenly grew hoarse. He tapped the podium with his knuckles, drew a slow breath, as if gathering all his strength to say the following words: "I have another daughter." The whole hall erupted in an uproar. Hanjo's back stiffened. "My daughter disappeared 10 years ago due to an accident. Her mother and I searched for her for 10 full years, using every connection we could, but we never found her, until last month." Lin He-ting said this, then looked up, his gaze sweeping across the entire banquet hall and settling on the table where I sat. "My daughter has returned." The spotlight suddenly shone on me. The whispers in the Diamond Hall vanished all at once in that moment. More than 300 pairs of eyes, more than 300 astonished faces, all turned toward me. I was wearing a dark green qipao and carrying the Lin family's ancestral jade. Slowly standing up from my seat, the spotlight followed me all the way. My high heels stepped on the red-carpeted stairs, walking to the center of the stage. Step by step, the audience below was quiet, so quiet that you could hear even a pin drop. Lin He-ting reached out his hand, holding mine, and spoke into the microphone. "Everyone, this is my daughter, Lin Nanji." I could feel his hand trembling slightly. 3 years ago, when I knelt before him and said, "The person I chose won't be wrong," he didn't utter a word of reproach. He just turned around, his back to me, and remaining silent for a long time. Then he said, "Go ahead." I always thought he was driving me away. It wasn't until later that I learned that that night he sat alone in his study for the whole night, and the next morning he sent someone to search every street and alley in Harbor City for me. He never gave up on me. I said into the microphone, "Dad, I'm back." Just these 4 words. Lynn Heading's tears fell on the spot. The audience fell silent for 2 seconds, then erupted into thunderous applause. Some stood up to applaud, some held up their phones to film, and some wiped away tears. Only one person didn't move, Hanjo. He sat at the secondary main table, his face pale as paper. He watched me stand under the spotlights, standing at that peak of the business world that he once thought only he could reach. I look at him, behind a sea of applause and lights flashing like waves. I saw him clench the napkin in his hand, his knuckles turning pale from the force. He probably understood it all, the 4 characters' clean break sound. So ridiculous when heard now. I took nothing, because there is more in the Lin family than in the Empire Group by more than 1-0. He has always thought I was just an ordinary woman of humble origins, a wife who could be discarded at will, free labor that needed no wages. He has never known that Shinanji is surnamed Lin, and Lin's Lin family is the Lin whom the entire Port City business world must bow to. Chapter 10. His ending is watching me walk toward another man, in the second half of the banquet. Hanjo had not returned to his seat the whole time. Later, Xiaozhou told me that he had gone to the restroom midway and hadn't come out for a long time. Later, a waiter went in to clean and found him standing in front of the sink, facing the mirror, splashing his face with cold water for a long time. Director whose eyes are red, Xiaozhou said, as if he had cried, but I no longer cared whether he had cried or not. When the banquet ended, the MC announced tonight's finale, the strategic cooperation signing ceremony between the Lin Group and the Lin Charity Foundation. The one who went on stage is Lin Buizhou, the eldest son of Lin Heading, the heir to the Lin family's business, and the real master behind the Empire Group acquisition deal. Hanjo only now realizes that the Lin Group's legal representative who had been negotiating with him for a month at the negotiating table was just Lin Buizhou's vanguard. The true person who holds the strings is never on the chessboard. Lin Buizhou stood on the stage, signed his name, shook hands with the host, then took the microphone and suddenly smiled. "Everyone, please give me 2 minutes of your time." The audience fell quiet. "Today is a special day. My younger sister Nanji has finally come home. As her elder brother, I would like to take this occasion to announce something the Lin family has been preparing for a long time." He turned to the side, facing the audience, his gaze skimming over table after table. "Our Lin family will hold a formal ceremony 3 months from now to officially recognize Nanji's lineage." Applause rang out, but Lin Buizhou waved his hand. "There's one more thing, the engagement of Nanji." All eyes suddenly fell on me again. I, seated at the main table, paused with the cup in my hand. "What engagement?" Lin Buizhou smiled and continued. "Before Nanji disappeared, our Lin family had a betrothal with the Lu family. The eldest son of the Lu family, Lu Yanhang, grew up with Nan Ji. These years he has been waiting for her to return. Now that Nanji has returned, this betrothal should be on the agenda." The banquet hall first fell silent, then suddenly erupted in noise. Everyone's eyes began to look around. "Who is Lu Yanhang?" Then I saw a man stand up from a seat further back from the sub-main table. A man in a dark gray suit, tall and slender, with refined features, stood up in the glow of the room lights, as if walking out from a classical painting. He walked toward the main table. He came to me, bowed slightly, and held out his hand to me. "Nanji." He called my name. The voice was neither high nor low, carrying an indescribable calm and gentleness. It was as if he were calling someone who had waited for many years. Lu Yanheng. I quickly searched my memory for this name. 10 years ago, when I was still with the Lin family, there really was such a person. The Lin family and the Lu family are childhood acquaintances, visiting each other during every festival. Lu Yanheng is 3 years older than me. When we were little, he always sat quietly by, reading a book, occasionally raising his head to glance at me, then lowering his head again, his ears turning a quiet red. I thought all of that was just adults' jokes, but at this moment he stands in front of me, reaching out his hand, looking into my eyes. That gaze carried far too many things that have accumulated over 10 years. I hadn't had a chance to react yet when I heard a sound coming from the corner of the banquet hall. It was the sound of a wine Glass shattering on the floor, everyone turned their heads, while Hanjo stood there. His silver gray suit was splashed with wine, and the wine glasses lay shattered all over the floor. He didn't look at the fragments on the ground, nor at the guests in the hall. He only looked at me in his eyes, which were bloodshot. There were too many tangled things: relentlessness, regret, anger, and a cruelest fact that he had finally realized. He never truly possessed me. When I married him 3 years ago, he thought he had just married a useful secretary. He never knew that he had married the daughter of the Lin family, Li Yanhan's fiancée, who had waited 10 years, the person whom he could never reach in his lifetime. Now I finally stand in the position that belongs to me, and he was nearly losing the qualification to stand in the corner and observe, while Hanjo took a step forward. Xiaozhou clutched his sleeve tightly from behind. Mr. Hua, don't. While Hanjo shook off Xiaozhou and went straight toward the main table. The gaze of all the guests in the hall followed him. Security personnel had already whispered into their walkie-talkies, and someone in the corner was holding up a phone to film quietly. He walked up to me, standing beside Li Yanheng. 2 men, one in a silver gray suit with wine stains still spreading across his chest, the other in a dark gray haute couture, his brows and eyes calm. One is the person I wrongly paid for in the past 3 years. One is the person I might come to know again in the rest of my life. Hu Hanshao looked at me, his Adam's apple rolling. Nanji, his voice barely audible. I'm sorry. These 3 words, I said to him, you should have said 3 years ago. Then I turned my head and placed my hand into Li Yanheng's palm. His hand was warm, unlike what I imagined in my imagination. A person who had waited 10 years would have a cold hand, but the temperature in his palm was steady, as if it would never change no matter how long we waited. I followed him, step by step, toward the door of the banquet hall. Behind us were more than 300 pairs of eyes in a room full of whispers. I did not turn around. As I passed by Hua Hanzhou, I did not look at him, but I can feel him stiffen in place like a rock reef submerged by the sea. Only after the tide recedes does one realize how smaller and more miserable they are than imagined. When I reached the doorway, Li Yanheng looked down at me. Did you cry? He asked. No, I said. That's good. His mouth curved a little. The road ahead is still long. The evening breeze blew in the square in front of the hotel. The Lin family's Rolls-Royce was already waiting by the roadside. Lin Buizhou stood beside the car, raising his eyebrows a bit when he saw us come out, but he said nothing. I sat in the car, leaned against the leather seat, and looked up at the night sky over the port city. The neon lights glow as bright as daytime. This city witnessed my humbling 3 years, and it witnessed me stand up again. Li Yanheng sat down beside me, not deliberately close, and not deliberately distant. He just sat quietly, like someone who had waited a long time and could finally take a rest. Thank you for waiting for me, I said. Wait for me? I don't know where to go either, he said. The car slowly drove out of the hotel driveway. In the rearview mirror, the hotel gate grew farther away. I saw a silhouette rush out from the revolving door, stand on the steps, watching our car go farther and farther away. A silver gray suit, a wine stain on the chest. It's He Hanzhou. He stood alone in the empty square, the hotel lights behind him blazing, and before him an endless stream of cars and neon lights. He has lost everything. The Imperial Group is no longer his. Bai Lushu is taken away, his secretary, his wife, the partner he once relied on the most, all gone. He has lost everything, not because he is not smart enough, not because he is not capable enough, only because he has never learned one simplest truth. People who are truly worthy of being cherished never wait for you to learn to cherish them in the same place. I lift my gaze away from the rearview mirror and look at the road ahead. In the front passenger seat, Lin Buizhou turned his head and handed over a document. Congratulations, Shinanji. Oh no, Lin Nanji, 51% of the Imperial Group's shares have officially been transferred. You are now the controlling shareholder of the Imperial Group. How would you like to dispose of the remaining 20% held by Hanzhou? I took the document and flipped it open to take a quick look, then I closed it. Let him keep it. Lin Buizhou raised an eyebrow. I did not explain. Well, Hanzhou needs that 20% stake, not because he still belongs in the Empire Group, but because he needs to come to the company to work every day. He needs to see every day who sits in the chair he once sat in. He needs to sign daily, and every contract over 500,000 must be approved by the chief financial officer stationed by the Lin Group. He needs to walk into that building every day and see all the people who once bowed their heads to him, now calling me Mr. Shin. This is 100 times more painful for him than driving him away. The car drove over the cross-sea bridge of the port city, and the lights on both shores were reflected on the sea. Li Yanheng turned his head, looking at my profile. What are you looking at? I asked. Look at a flower blooming, he said, acid, then there's nothing to say. But he did not take his gaze away. End of the text.